This is In the Trenches, broadcast 59.
Welcome to In the Trenches, where entrepreneurs, artists, writers, designers, inventors, warriors, and leaders share their stories of doing the hard, creative work that impacts all of our lives. Let the journey inspire you to do something worthwhile, build something bold, and create your life's work. And now, your host, Tom Morkis.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another broadcast of In the Trenches. Today's guest is Dane Maxwell, and I'm very excited to have Dane on because I've been following his work for quite some time. I'd say at least 3, if not 4 years, maybe even before that. And Dane is the founder of The Foundation, which is a training program and community that teaches aspiring entrepreneurs how to build companies fast and profitably. And it's really, I look at it and I see it as being in the vein of the lean startup methodology, which is something I really appreciate. And the 6 phases that they put entrepreneurs through in the program are really wicked. And we'll talk about those a little bit later. But a little background on The Foundation. It's not only that I love the program itself, but it's the fact that Dane has been able to create this thing and scale it so remarkably in the past few years that they have sold over $5 million worth of the foundation content in just the past few years from scratch. So again, I think that's pretty remarkable. So today I wanted to dig into the foundation, find out more about Dane and what inspired him to build it, how he's building it, and where he's going from here. So Dane, first and foremost, thank you so much for being on the call with us today.
Yeah, man. Pleasure.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about yourself prior to the foundation. What's your story?
Well, I mean, I think the story can be found if you want to search online. I'm 31, almost 32. Started entrepreneurship when I was 20 or 21. Got started with my first book, Rich Dad Poor Dad. Started buying and selling websites. Got scammed. Started building businesses instead. And the story's been told many times, so they can go and listen to that. Eventually, it ended up I got good at it, and people wanted to learn from me. And now the foundation exists today because people were just really wanting to learn what I knew. I never thought what I knew was really special. I was all alone, in a room just reading books and doing what I knew would make money. And I never really got sucked into the whole business world of traditional advice, thankfully, and just kind of followed a intuitive hit guided by a few really smart businessmen that I followed. And I drastically underestimated the financial power that I would start earning by following just a few basic, really simple things in business. And I think as you were talking about the 5 million and what we've been able to do, and I want to first start to say that I've probably personally seen anywhere between $500,000 to $750,000 of the 5, maybe as much as $1 million. I'm not sure. We spend a lot to keep a really remarkable team together and build it into a pretty established, legit business. Mm-hmm. And so I want people to know that in terms of the 5. But that's a conscious decision. It's not, I only made 5 and only kept $500,000 to $750,000. It's more the why. Why did I do that? My income is not actually dictated by a circumstance. It's not like, oh man, I was only able to make this. No, I decide exactly how much money I want to make, and then I make it, and I'm not limited in any way other than my mind. And when you were talking about the how you're impressed with the foundation, I was thinking about what's the next thing that I'm going to do, and the next thing that I want to do, the way that you just said it, the 5 million in so many years, I was like, yeah, we really tapped into a nice key desire with the foundation.
Yeah.
And I was like, the next thing that we do, the next thing that I do, the next business that I create, in this present moment, I'm just feeling into how deeply I want to tap into a desire that is so massive and so painful that the price tag is astronomically high. The satisfaction level of the customer is astronomically high, and it's like even more mass market than the foundation.
Interesting. So let's talk about that. If you don't mind, it's a little bit of maybe a tangent that I didn't expect to get into, but I'm curious about your mindset on that, because I feel like you kind of have hit the nail on the head with the foundation. And that's not to say it's easy what you guys are doing. I know it's not, and I know it takes a lot of time and effort and money to do what you guys are doing the way you're doing it. But I guess what's fascinating is I find that people that have gone through the program, people that talk about the program, and the way it's spread around online is that you guys have tapped into a very big pain, and that you're solving it in a very, very good way, and that you're actually solving it. You're solving the pain there. So what could be a bigger pain that has a bigger, even potentially a bigger price tag that's even more mass marketable? I find that a really difficult question. So how do you think about that?
Well, we'd go outside of entrepreneurship, right? So right now we're limited to people who desire entrepreneurship. It's a pretty small segment of the population. Now, if you look at something like the data can be found online, you have to look it up a little bit, but somewhere between 6 to 8 out of 10 Americans have dreamt of starting their own business. 6 to 8 out of 10 Americans. But only 1 in 300 actually do. So while 60 to 80% of people actually want to do it, 0.3% have actually done it. It's a massive, massive gap. So the foundation exists to close that gap. And you could say that, even if it's 50%, that's quite a bit of the market, but it's still not every human. And, I believe that I believe in niching markets down, and the greater the niche you go to, the easier, just the easier just to sell stuff. If we wanted to really if we were out just to make money and make things easy, we would target the foundation to current 6-figure business owners who want to get into a better business model. So if you're an information marketer making 6 figures, if you're an affiliate marketer making 6 figures, if you're in any business at all and you're making 6 figures, you're probably not in as good of a business model as software as a service is. And software as a service is by far the best business model, quantifiably proven. It's not my opinion. The data shows it substantially better than any other business model. And so we would just teach people who are already successful how to pivot their business into software. And they can do it really fast and be really successful, and it'd be super easy. But I don't like that, because I really believe in helping the underdog. So I like helping people that are just starting out. But beyond that, I would probably go after the widespread condition of loneliness, people feeling lonely, people searching for significance and self-worth, and the lost ways, the myriad of lost ways that they go about trying to find self-worth. When if you just had someone feeling completely and totally worthy all on their own, and then not lonely, but connected and belonging, from that place, I would be much more curious how they would live and what they would decide to do as a human. Because what happens is people at the foundation join the foundation right now. They say they want to start a business, but I question, how many of them actually really want to start a business versus just to feel completely full of worth and belong. And then once they do that, it's like, oh, you know what? I've actually always wanted to be a musician. Yeah. So I would say, as I'm talking through this out loud, I would say it would be a company that it would be a process that solves the problem of self-worth and loneliness, so that people feel completely and totally worthy and enough, and then connected, and then showing them what their unique gift in the world is, because everyone is born with a unique set of gifts that they have, that they're just innately better at than anyone else, and then showing them how to cultivate those gifts and blow those up and leverage them. That would probably be, an every human thing that I would be excited about.
Tell me a little bit, though, about this, because I feel like some of your success, looking at it from the outside, in the context of success in terms of not money, but obviously that stems from the same thing, but it's success in connecting with and building the tribe that you guys have at the foundation, building the community that you have. I feel like a lot of it stems from actually how you have tapped into some of the anxieties that you just mentioned, some of the fears, the idea of loneliness and wanting connection. Because I've watched a lot of your videos, I've seen you do a lot of presentations, I've seen you talk about this a lot. How much do you think that has actually influenced like the success of the foundation itself? How you approach that? And even before this conversation, before we started recording, you asked me, what do you want for your life? Which I've never had an interviewee come on and ask me that. And I feel like that's a testament to you and your character. So tell me a little bit about that. How do you think that has fashioned and shaped the foundation as a whole?
Well, yeah. And the question I asked you exactly was not just what you want, but I asked you, what do you deeply desire at this point of your life right now?
Yeah, that was it.
Because like want can be like, oh man, I want a lot of things, but like, what do you deeply desire? And so can you ask the question again?
Yeah, sorry. Sometimes I get on these tirades a little bit. So I guess the fundamental question I'm asking is the way you approach this stuff. So the words you've been using, how you've been describing this, your interest in kind of the human psyche and stuff like that, and what ails individuals, and you feel really drawn to that and passionate about it. How do you think that you kind of being that way or being interested in that, how do you think that has actually influenced the success of the foundation of what you're building, just the current business you're building right now?
Well, the thing I like about entrepreneurship is you're just measured by your results. Like that's the one thing all entrepreneurs are driven down to is like, what was your result? Revenue, profit. What was your result? How much carbon emissions did you reduce? What was your result? How much did you donate to charitable causes? What was your result? How many new customers do you have? So I like that entrepreneurship can be reduced down to just statistics and data. In terms of talking about like that's where I initially want to go. Is like, all right, so we talk about mindset. But I really feel like while we talk about it, we've been kind of skirting around the issue of how significantly impactful and important it actually is. And in our next series of videos for our next class, we're blowing that area up. We're really speaking into it deeply. And how much has it impacted? Significantly. It's significant. And I think time will tell as the foundation continues to dwarf. In terms of data, it's hard to say like how many customers came in, but my intuition says it's everything about the foundation because, we have a student who joined the Amazing Selling Machine course. Have you heard of that one?
Yep.
Okay, so they teach you how to build an Amazon store, which, selling products on Amazon, which, by the way, from what I've heard from people, their sales are starting to decline because the market's so saturated because go figure, you're not actually providing really any value. You're just rehawking private label products and you're learning how to game a system to make money for a while. That's not entrepreneurship if you stop there. It's entrepreneurship you're selling to. Oh, shit. Did I lose you?
Just like 1 second, it dropped in and out, but I think I got you.
Okay. Well, so yeah, like, the guy joins Amazon and it's a great moneymaker. It's step by step. If you want to follow something just step by step and make money and you don't really care about being an entrepreneur, go start an Amazon store. If you really want to have your whole heart become an entrepreneur. If you deeply desire entrepreneurship on the level of the heart, where you just become an innate creator, regardless of your circumstance, an innate creator that can create anything from anywhere at any time, whether they're in Africa, Europe, America, Asia, whatever. Like they can always just be an entrepreneur. It doesn't matter. The circumstances no longer matter. You just basically create infinitely wherever you are. Then I believe that you need to completely transform and change your heart. And because right now your heart's been not change your heart really, but like actually just update the software of your mind to reflect the desire of your heart. Because I think the desire of, you're an entrepreneur if you really desire it in your heart. And you desire it in your heart if your heart says, would you be happy working for someone else? If your heart says no, it's generally a good case that your heart has been designed for entrepreneurship. And I mean, I'm oversimplifying it for just trying to help people out, but because we update the internal software of a person's mind and change their programming, transform and reform their programming to match the desires of their heart. Because what happens if you're born with an entrepreneur's heart and you don't even really know it yet, and you grow up in a society of people that say, go to school, get good grades, get a safe, secure job. And so the programming for 20 years of your life has been job, employee, get a mortgage, monthly payment, mortgage, monthly payment, get in debt, monthly payment. So you have to have a job to continue to pay your debt. Well, if you look at the financial system and how it's set up, Rockefeller set up the first financial systems or the education systems in the early days to churn out responsible employees. Mm-hmm. And if you look at the way the world works now, is you have for the most part, you have financial institutions giving loans to students to graduate to come work in the very same financial institutions that are loaning them the money.
Yep.
It's absolutely crap. So the employee's making 10 times on whatever they're paying you, and then they're making money on the interest. And why is this society set up that way? It's not set up that way because it's what's in the best interest for everyone. It's set up to benefit the financial companies.
Yep.
So if you have the heart of entrepreneur, the desire for entrepreneurship, and your belief in programming has been programmed for the last 20 years to not be an entrepreneur, that transformation of mind is absolutely critical. And if you've been programmed for 20 years of your life, it takes a good 6 months to 2 years for your entire nervous system to completely update till you just start breathing entrepreneur. So it's highly important in that our students that graduate from the foundation become creators, not just entrepreneurs. Mm-hmm. And so someone joined the Amazon course and he said, hey, yeah, I learned how to take steps online to make money, but then I joined the foundation and I learned how to become an entrepreneur. So that's how I answer your question.
Yeah, that's interesting. I like that. You hit on something again that I didn't necessarily know we were going to go in this direction, but I'm curious what your thoughts are on this. How critical do you think it is in the kind of current economic environment and what it seems to be trending towards? Like if you look at macro economic situation and the decrease in jobs and the in the United States, for example, a lot of the outsourcing of jobs, just how easy it is to do that, and a lot of like higher level jobs, and that's happening more and more. How critical do you think it is to become an entrepreneur in this day and age, whatever type of entrepreneur that means? But I think or whatever type of entrepreneurship that might be, but from the core of it being a creator, how critical do you think that is?
Well, when I say critical, I'd say critical for your own personal happiness. I'd say it's essential. You have a couple options. You can sit and complain about the environment and say, oh, I went to college for 4 years and how am I supposed to get a job when everyone wants experience, but I can't get hired to get experience, right? Okay, well, now you're just being a little bitching about your circumstances, truly. And you can continue to do that. Or you can wake up, take control of your life, take full responsibility of your life, buck up, and say, I'm not going to let any external circumstance stop me. And in that, become an entrepreneur. Now, so it depends on what you want. If you want to be at the beck and call of the economy, if you want to be at the beck and call of a company who sets your salary, if you basically want to be a cog in a wheel, who's essentially getting whatever it is the wheel decides to give that cog, and you don't want full control over your life, then I would say employee is best for you. Now, there are definite pros to being an employee at a great company. We have amazing employees that work at a foundation, work at our company, the foundation, and they get time freedom, location freedom, benefits, et cetera, and they're very happy because they just don't want to learn the skills / they don't really have the desire for entrepreneurship in their heart. So they just make better employees. And God bless our team, because it's absolutely essential that that they're there. So I say being an employee is great if you're working at a good company. But where you become a cog in a wheel is when you're like in that traditional society crap. And if you don't want to be any part of that, you don't actually have to. There's really no such thing as the real world. The real world exists for not me. There's really no such thing. Like John Mayer has a song. He says, there's no such thing as the real world. He said, I found out there's no such thing as the real world, just a lie that I had to rise above. And now John Mayer lives in his own world, and I live in my own world. And you can create your own world. So I would say it depends on the strong desire you have to create your own world. And with that, carry the burden of responsibility of what it might be like to run a company. Now, if you keep in mind, we all have the same 24 hours in a day. So it's not like I have more or less time than anyone else. So I think it's really the cost benefit of like, okay, how much do you want full control over your life, and how much are you willing to sacrifice to get there? Because I sacrificed everything, and I would do it all over again. But that's just how I was designed. I had to do it. It's essential for my happiness.
Did you know it was, or did you just you felt compelled, and then that's how you became happy through breaking through those struggles and through the sacrifice you had to make, and that's how you know in hindsight that you were made for it, and that's what created happiness? I'm curious because, I guess hindsight is one thing. It's always, to a degree we can look back and we could say, okay, yeah, this is, destined to be, but then, put yourself back, in your shoes 5, 10 or whatever years ago. Was it that clear to you? And I'm curious then for the person who is just kind of feeling out this potential journey or this path, what are the indicators that they should move forward?
Well, I just want to say that wherever you're at right now is okay, especially if you've been either lied to or guided in a direction by parents, peers, or whatever. The important point is that you really recognize the deep desire of your heart. And you know in your heart if you have the deep desire to be an entrepreneur. But then again, I don't know if the people will be able to listen to that desire in their heart when the belief in programming speaks so loudly against entrepreneurship. It's too risky. You need an idea. You need lots of money. You need credentials. So I think it will be hard for people to hear that desire in their heart. And I just say that I really just care a lot about people making the best decision for their life. For me, it was crystal clear. I mean, it was, and I think for any entrepreneur who is truly happy and successful at what they do, it was crystal clear to them. And because I struggle to imagine entrepreneurship being a possibility for someone who's just kind of half in, half out of it. Most of the guys that I respect and know are all in. That doesn't mean they can't start on the side, but they're all in on the idea of being in control of their own life as an entrepreneur, building their own thing. So, yeah, when I was in my low 20s, it was crystal clear. I knew exactly what I wanted. I had a girlfriend at the time who said, go and get a job downtown. Put on a suit and go downtown. And I was angry. I'd be angry. Like, I'd tell her, off. Like, literally. Don't you dare get in my way. Get out of my way. Get out of my way. I will never crawl on my hands and knees into a job and ask for a paycheck with my tail between my legs because I could not figure out how to add value on my own. I will do anything it takes to learn how to add enough value on my own so that I never have to punch in for someone else. Mm-hmm. I was crystal clear on that. And so,
tell me a little bit about that, because I think the foundation is built on service in that construct, in the idea of idea extraction, and figuring out what is it that people need, and then refining that until you can actually build on that. So tell me a little bit about the service element about that, about the service and about value creation. Why is that so important, and why is that maybe different than how other people teach entrepreneurship, or why your program's different than stuff that's out there?
Yeah, so I'm present to this whole idea of employee versus entrepreneur. I do believe that there are people that are innately designed to be entrepreneurs, like that just have the DNA of entrepreneurship. And I believe that you really know it if you can see through all the programming and have that deep in your heart. And if you have the desire to support an entrepreneur, like you're like, you know what, I'm not a visionary person. I just really like to support visionary people. Then God bless you. Please even reach out. We'd love to have you at the foundation. And so I want to speak to the idea of your worth is not tied to anything that you do. And so because your self-worth isn't tied to entrepreneur or employee, and I feel like I was hinting at that earlier, which is why I wanted to correct it now. since your self-worth isn't tied to anything, your worth is not even in question. You're just worthy, period. There's no question on your worth. Then the purpose of life becomes one thing primarily, just to enjoy it. And if you wake up in the morning and say, what are you about to do this morning? Well, whatever you're about to do, I hope the primary reason that you're about to do it is if you enjoy it. So if you're a teacher and you enjoy that, great. If you're an employee who likes to support entrepreneurs because you really just enjoy and you get juice out of being a helper and supporting someone, God bless you. And if you have the heart for entrepreneurship, I hope you do that too because you enjoy it. So I'm assuming that people are listening to this probably have that desire for entrepreneurship. Now, that being said, the process for creation and creating products is, for me, you ask the background. When you draw a line in the sand and you become crystal clear about something, like for me, I'm like super crystal clear. Like I have to be an entrepreneur. Like I have to. It's just what I needed. It's what I wanted. It's everything I wanted. It's how I personally feel powerful, is knowing that I can create from anything. And having that line in the sand, drawing that line in the sand, like, no, I'm an entrepreneur no matter what. And I did have a dark time where I almost considered being an employee. I was broke down and I was talking to a job to see if they would hire me, and they didn't hire me, thankfully. And the line in the sand was drawn, and that's not that they didn't hire me. It's that I didn't really end up wanting it. So now that the line in the sand is drawn and I have to be an entrepreneur no matter what, you got to keep in mind, I don't have an idea. I don't have any money. I don't have any experience or credentials. I have literally nothing. So my back's against the wall. I'm not giving up on entrepreneurship. I'm not a conditional entrepreneur. I'm an unconditional entrepreneur. See, the conditional entrepreneur is like, oh, I'm waiting for an idea. Oh, I'm waiting to have enough time. Or I'm waiting for my family to be in the right place. Or I'm waiting to have my savings. You're just a conditional entrepreneur. And you're not really an entrepreneur until you become an unconditional entrepreneur, where you're going to be in business no matter what. You're going to create no matter what. And so since I have that line in the sand, that's the essence that created the process I'm about to share. So this process could only have been created because I drew the line in the sand that strong. Super, super important for you guys to hear that. So that being said, the process is step 1, idea discovery. Step 2, sketching the solution. Step 3, pre-selling. Step 4, building a product. And step 5, launching. Now, you notice step 4, and by the way, Tom, are you still there?
Yeah, sorry. I just mute on my ends for better call quality. I'm engaged.
Great. So, so step 4, building the product. So keep in mind, what most entrepreneurs do is they put step 4, building a product, to step 1, which makes entrepreneurship quite risky. Which begs the question, is entrepreneurship risky? Yes, it can be. But I think being an employee can also be even riskier. As an employee, you have one stream of income. As an entrepreneur, you can build multiple streams of income. Well, entrepreneurship is risky if you put step 4, building the product, at step 1. So that process, step 1, idea discovery, find a painful problem. Step 2, sketch out that painful problem as a solution. Step 3, pre-sell it to that person to get money in advance. Step 4, use that money to go find an expert to build the product. And then step 5, launch. All you had to do was listen, ask questions, and facilitate. And anybody can do that. That's the process.
I love it. And it's something that I think for an individual who's trying to start a company, a small business or something like that, I think it's clutch. It's essential, because even if you look at the most successful startups these days generally apply the lean startup methodology, which is similar. They might have actual backing and funding and stuff like that. But what's cool about the process you just went through is you truly can start from nothing. And I'll say, from my own example, I've done that a number of times. I've done it for books. I've done it for bigger kind of courses. And then I recently did it for a book marketing service, where I started engaging with authors, figuring out what their biggest pain points were, found out that it was getting getting eyeballs on their books so that they could sell books, right? And then being able to build a service around that and then essentially sell that to them. But like you said, I mean, I didn't actually build the product or do anything like that until I had gotten the confirmation that that's what they wanted, was able to pitch it to them and say, is this what you want? And then get that buy and get that pre-sale. So I can say without a doubt that this process works. So I think it's pretty remarkable for anybody listening to it. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, no, I was just going to add to your thing. So the thing is, okay, you find the problem. Oh, needing eyeballs on books. How do you solve that? Well, you don't personally. Find someone that knows how to solve it, and then put their expertise in place as your product.
Tell me a little bit about that. What do you mean? Like, how is that different? I'm trying to wrap my head around that.
Well, so I mean, I don't build products. I don't like building products.
Mm-hmm.
I like hiring experts to build products. So I'm not limited in what I can build to my expertise. I'm only limited in what I can build to what questions and pain I find. So if you find this problem is, okay, getting eyeballs on my books, then you're like, okay, well, shoot, how do I solve that problem? Well, ask yourself this question. How much do you care about that other person? If a family member's life was on the line and your husband or your wife or your daughter or your best friend was going to die, if you didn't figure out this problem, what would you do? You'd probably go find someone that knows how to do it. So maybe you look at the top 10 best-selling books of all time and you'd reverse engineer everything they did to launch their books successfully and turn that into a system. Who knows? But the point is, once you find the problem, it's not like, oh gosh, how do I solve that? No, it's how much do you care? And can you care about that person more than you care about yourself? And if you care about that person more than you care about yourself, then you'll do anything in the world to solve their problem. And that's when business becomes very, very profitable. And that is the greatest secret and also permission enabler I could ever share with anyone, is that if you want to be successful in business, find someone to care about and care more about them than you do any obstacle in your way. And you will always have yourself be pulled through. And even a good friend of mine tracked down Steve Jobs while Steve was still alive, and he tracked him down and hunted him down. He said, Steve, hey, tell me, what's your secret over there at Apple? Steve paused. He looked down. He looked back up at my friend. And he said, I think you've just got to care. So you got Steve Jobs, billionaire, talking about, you don't build a remarkable iPhone unless you care. Because this product's got to be a pain in the butt to build. But how much do you care? We all have the same 24 hours in a day. If you care, you're set. Find someone to care about. Don't worry about any of your own crap. Get out of your mind and get into the mind of someone else. It's the most freeing thing in the world. And for who? Go do that. If you care, you make a lot of money. Caring is highly profitable.
How, on that note, and I love that message, but I'm also curious too about this other concept, which I think is important maybe for somebody going from just being a self-employed, sole proprietor to actually building a business. How important is it for you to get out of your own way and actually get other people, whether it's a co-founder or a technical co-founder or getting other people to build the solution for you so that you can lead and you can build and you can grow the business? Because it sounds like what you're alluding to as well is that it's actually, you had said you don't build it. You get somebody who's better at software to build it for you. How important is that concept as well to building a successful business?
Outsourcing the product creation so you can do everything else?
Yeah.
Well, I think it's pretty important. Yeah. I mean, you're a first-time entrepreneur, you're generally pretty stuck on the product, It's like, gosh, what product? But after you build a few companies, you realize that the product's pretty insignificant. The product's a big stopping point for first-time entrepreneurs, but man, it's not that big a deal. I mean, you might look at the iPhone and say, hey, this product's really important, but it's not the iPhone that makes Apple successful. If you look at Apple's company, Steve is always hiring the most talented people. They bought a mountain in Italy
just so they could harvest the marble, just so they could make the stores look incredible. And they bought a mountain for that. Like they bought out every single piece of flash memory on the planet so they could keep the cost of their iPhone down. It's not the idea of the iPhone that makes it successful. It's the company that runs Apple. Like if you had the same idea at the same time as Apple, and you even had the same resources at the same time as Apple, but you didn't understand the focus of Apple's success is their team and how they run their company, you get slaughtered. So, people like first-time entrepreneur, what I say to you is product is only so important. And the product doesn't make you successful, because what generally happens for these first-time entrepreneurs is they get a product made and then they put it out in the world to crickets, and they're not making any sales. Like, so they make a product and it just doesn't sell. You get these authors that write books that nobody sees or wants to read. Well, who'd the author write the book for? Did they actually write it for someone, or did they, what's the premise of the creation of that book? Was the creation of that book. Like, see, if I ever write a book, which I will, I'm not going to write a book by myself. I'll write a book a chapter at a time with an audience who watches me, that asks questions, that gives me feedback, that says, I really love this chapter. Hey, I don't. And each one of my chapters is going to be based on a key desire of my customer. So, you don't have to guess. I find someone to care about, and then that caring writes the book. And where am I in that equation? The facilitator of care. So the first time entrepreneur, you're like, oh, I got to get the product. So then you get the product, then you get it built, and then you're like, all right, now I got to get customers. And then you're like, oh, crap. It's really terrifying the first time you do that. I did it. It sucks. You work your tail to build an incredible product, then you get done with it, and you're like, oh, crap, what do I do now? So I focus on what do I do now, and I let someone else build the product.
Yep. Awesome. Well, Dane, I know we've already gotten over time a little bit here, but I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I think you've given some significant value, and I know the listeners appreciate it. Do you have any closing thoughts for aspiring entrepreneurs, and any last comments?
Yes, business is not magical. It's not a mystery box. It's not something that's difficult or impossible to obtain. It's very simple and straightforward to do. Easy at times, hard at others. And I just want you to know, if you want to be successful in business, it doesn't have anything to do with your intelligence, your intellect, your personality, any innate talent or gift that you may have that someone else doesn't. Entrepreneurship is completely attainable to you, and I believe it's completely attainable to anyone with the work ethic. And if you want to have a successful business, the only thing you need to remember is to follow a process and not to go alone. There are a few other things to remember, but really, it's just a matter of following a process. It's not magic. It's truly not like, oh gosh, I wonder if I'm good enough to build a business. No, you're fine. Your worth never in question. It has nothing to do with good enough or worthy to build a business. You just follow a freaking process. I created plenty of businesses when I felt plenty unworthy. I was plenty successful. I just followed a process. And we had a gal follow our little cheat sheet process where she asked this person what their most present pain was, and the person said, I'm trying to name my company. And she asked, well, how do you try to do that right now? And she's like, well, I list out all these adjectives and I look at all these names and I think about how I feel when I see these names, and I'm just really stuck. I don't know what to pick. And then she asked, well, what would you do if you can't solve that? What's going to happen if you don't solve that problem? And she's like, well, I'll never trademark my business. I'll never be able to brand my business. I won't be able to get started marketing in my business, which are all very, very probably backwards ways of thinking, but most people think that way. And you want to start with the way people think, not with the way you want them to think. So then you say, okay, great. Well, if you could wave a magic wand, how would you want to solve this problem? And she said, I'd take everyone in this room, and in 5 minutes we'd brainstorm and pick my name. And then the good lady asked, how much would you pay for this? And she says, $500. So in 3 minutes, an entire business is born. How to name your business or product. A crowdsourced marketplace for helping people name their businesses and products. And it was done in a matter of 3 minutes by asking those 5 questions, by finding someone to care about, and that badass, brilliant, genius idea of a crowdsourced marketplace to help people name their business or product was born in 3 minutes by asking 5 questions and following the frickin' process. It's not a matter of intelligence. It's not a matter of genius. It's not a matter of inherent talent or skill. Just follow a frickin' process. Just do the process. And I went over and I talked to these 2 girls. They were asking each other's questions. I said, hey, how's this going? And she's like, oh, well, we're going on a tangent. We're going on a detour. I said, what was happening? She's like, well, I asked her about what her present problem was, and she said naming her business. And then I asked her, well, like, you know, if you could do this or if you could do this. She tried to solve her problem for her. And I said, no, what are you doing? You deviated from the process. Just ask the second question. How do you do it now? Then ask the third, then the fourth, and the fifth. And so when she went through the process and asked the questions and didn't sabotage herself or deviate from the process, she became successful and found this idea. So this is a very, very important point. I want to hammer this home and hit you guys over the head with it. Install this in your heart. You can be successful as an entrepreneur. All you need to do is follow a path or a process, and please don't go alone so you can have someone catch you if you ever start to deviate from a process. Now, if you would like one of the best processes I know of for abundant, successful creation where you don't have to be an expert, you don't have to have an idea, you don't need money, and you don't have to worry about your self-worth because none of that stuff's even in question, we'd love to help support you build a company, especially if you're a first-time entrepreneur, and build a life that you are excited to wake up to every day. We'd love to have you over at thefoundation.com.
Awesome, Dane. I appreciate it, man. This will all be linked up in the show notes. I know people appreciate this, and I'll make sure to send everybody your way to check out the foundation and scope it out. But yeah, man, again, thank you so much for being on the call with us today. Invaluable.
You're welcome.
And that wraps up another broadcast of In the Trenches. If you'd like to check out the show notes, just head over to tommorkes.com/podcast, where you'll find the latest broadcast. And if you enjoyed today's broadcast, please do me a favor and leave a rating and review on iTunes. That's the fastest, simplest, easiest way to support my creative work, and it would really mean a lot to me. As always, this is Tom Morkes, and if you're listening to this, you are the resistance. The resistance. The resistance. The resistance.